What Bloomberg is concerned about, a lot of people around New York are concerned about, President Trump is concerned about, is economic growth. Give us a snapshot of the state of New Jersey. How is New Jersey faring under President Trump's administration?
So New Jersey is faring quite well. I'm not sure how much credit I would give to the Trump administration for that. We've printed 3 consecutive all-time lowest unemployment rates. It's now down to 3.2%. But we've been in office about 20 months or so. We inherited kind of a mess on the fiscal side. So we're digging out of decades, in particular the last decade, of structural imbalances, pension, health care, property taxes. We still need some tax equity and fairness and more reliable income streams in the state. But we're making progress. You know, we're a state that basically, I just got back from a state visit to India, which was quite successful, and it was mostly about jobs and investment. And when you sell New Jersey, you basically sell 2 words: talent and location. And your operation, I might add, right here is a good example of that. So we've got the #1 public school system in America, some of the finest institutions of higher ed in the world, including another Nobel laureate yesterday from Princeton. We're opening up pre-K and access to college, both community college and 4-year college. So huge investments in talent, and likewise taking advantage of our location. We're the densest state. You mentioned this in the lead up. We're the densest state in the nation, so getting transit right, and another mess we inherited, is existential for us. So I'm not spiking any footballs. Yeah. I'm not sure how much credit I'm going to give to the Trump administration, because that led to a lot of the inequities that we're dealing with as well. But within our 4 walls, right, we're making the progress we need to make.
So another thing you have, as you know well, Governor, is you've got one of the highest per capita rates of state and local taxes in the nation, second maybe to Washington, D.C. There was a lot of talk about the so-called SALT tax handling under the Trump administration. Has that hurt New Jersey? And specifically, can you quantify people actually moving out of the state to avoid those state and local taxes?
It certainly hasn't helped us. I mean, that was basically taking a tax law at the federal level, the Trump administration, and weaponizing it against states like New Jersey, not just New Jersey, but states like us. So it certainly doesn't help us. Having said that, we haven't seen the evidence yet. And property taxes, which is a big chunk of the state and local exposure that folks have in our state, is something that we're working on morning, noon, and night. Trying to share services across communities, funding public education from the state side so you don't have to take the burden completely on the local side, growing the economy. Lots of steps we're taking, including challenging legally and otherwise the SALT cap deduction. And we are adamantly of the opinion, along with a bunch of like-minded states, that that's bad public policy. Frankly, it's unconstitutional in our judgment, and we're going to continue to fight it.
Yeah, it's an uphill battle because a lot of the court rulings have gone the other way. Let me ask about maybe encouraging people to leave, and let me talk about the Millionaires tax, so much closer to home for you. That's something that you have espoused, you've favored. Are you concerned that the Millionaires tax could do some of the bad things in New Jersey that you're concerned the SALT limitation might do?
No, I have to say, David, we've looked at the evidence. We don't take this lightly. And by the way, we don't begrudge people who have done well. God bless them. It's the American dream. We got nothing against millionaires. In fact, we want more of them. But it's a question of tax equity. There's no evidence in any of the research we've done that a tax like that leads to people's decision about where they locate. We've got about 19,000 millionaires in our state. God bless them. We've got 9 million residents. If we could just level that playing field just a bit, the amount of money we can raise from that will help us make that all-time investment into the middle class, into the dreams of those who aspire to get into the middle class. The challenge in New Jersey is far less a question of the income tax. It's the retired folks who don't have their kids in public school, who still own their home. That's an area that we acknowledge we have wood to chop. So we've got a big homestead rebate program. We've got a senior freeze. We have programs for seniors and veterans, shared services I mentioned. That's what we're attacking, and that's where the heart of that challenge is.
Right. We're talking with the Honorable Phil Murphy. He is the governor of New Jersey. So, Governor, you talked earlier about the need to get your fiscal house in order after you said a decade of real difficulty. One of the issues is pensions and the extent to which you're funded with pensions, because this is a national problem, as you well know, but it's particularly acute in New Jersey. In fact, New Jersey lags behind the national average. You're something like 43 cents of the dollar funded. Is there a real appetite on your behalf for pension reform in New Jersey?
So you've got big structural challenges, as I mentioned: pension, health care benefits, property taxes, and then a lack of a couple of reliable revenue streams we used to have. So we're attacking all of those. New Jersey has historically, over the past 10 or more years, has been one of the least lower funded pension systems in America. Even studies under my predecessor acknowledged that was entirely the state's fault. So we are slowly but surely, with each passing year, making historic payments to make up for lost time on the pension side. I'm also proud to say on the health care side, the budget that I signed this year had about $800 million of health care savings for public sector employees without taking it out on them. This was just more efficient delivery of health care to our public sector employees. So in each of those, I mentioned property taxes earlier, we take these structural deficits that we inherited seriously. We're on a journey. We're not going to get there overnight, because these problems didn't build overnight. They're built in some cases over decades. But we've got a plan. We're on that journey, and we're going to stay on it.
Governor Murphy, as I talk to my colleagues around Bloomberg about New Jersey, about the first thing they ask about is transit. A lot of it has to do with a tunnel under the Hudson River, but it goes beyond that to bridges and roads and things like that. Where are you on the needs of New Jersey on transit and how you can afford to pay for it?
So it's one of our top priorities. I'd say I mentioned talent and location, and that translates pretty quickly into education and transit. Moving people and things around our state is not of passing interest. It's existential to our aspirations and our potential strength. So we've made 2 back-to-back historic investments in NJ Transit. We've put the right leadership in there. We're meeting federal safety guidelines. We're hiring engineers. It won't get there overnight, but there's no question it'll get there. But to your question, David, we can't control everything. So we've got to have a relationship with Amtrak, which is, by the way, a good one these days. It wasn't good in the prior administration, but it's a good relationship. But again, that's got challenges as well, because they do work, as commuters know, in your shop and elsewhere in the summer months, and that really challenges us. The big X factor is getting the Trump administration to work with us in New York and the Port Authority to help us fund the whole Gateway family of projects. That would be new rail tunnels under the Hudson. The current tunnels were built in 1910, which is meaningfully before I got here. They were damaged in Superstorm Sandy. We need more tunnels. The Obama administration had said they would step up. We need the Trump administration to make that commitment. We've had some good meetings, I have to say, with the Department of Transportation in Washington lately. So there are glimmers of hope, particularly if we break that Gateway project down into its pieces. There's no question we'll do what we need to do, but we need our federal partners to do what they need to do alongside us.
Governor Phil Murphy of New Jersey, let's talk about the next administration, whether that's a second term for President Trump or whether there's a Democrat in the office. What do you need? You said you were not sure that the growth in New Jersey is attributable that much to President Trump, but the next president, what do you need? And let me be more specific. On the Democratic side, we have what appears to be a more progressive wing, maybe led by Elizabeth Warren, to some extent Bernie Sanders, and perhaps a more moderate wing, perhaps led by Vice President Biden. Which is better for the state of New Jersey?
We'll take any of the above. I'm all in for Senator Cory Booker. He's a friend. I've known him for a long time. I think he's an exceptional leader, and I think he'd make an exceptional president. But I will just say emphatically, I'll take any Democrat in the election next year. What we need is adult leadership. You mentioned I'm a former U.S. ambassador. This step, which has doesn't have a New Jersey nexus, but this step in Syria with the Kurds is absolutely atrocious. We've got as volatile a CEO in our country in Washington. and it's hurting us not just in New Jersey or America, but around the globe. In particular, I mentioned earlier that the inequities that the tax bill had uncovered have really hurt us. You know, I talk all the time about a stronger, fairer New Jersey that works for everybody, which means we have to grow the pie, and we're doing everything we can to do that, but we got to make sure everybody gets a piece of the pie. And any of the Democrats, again, I'm with Senator Booker, but any of the Democrats will be more qualified at both the growing the pie, but as importantly, if not more so, to make sure that everybody has access to their piece of the American dream, that if their aspiration is growing up in a working poor family as I was, that you could see a path that you could actually get in the middle class and live that dream. We don't have that in Washington today, and any Democrat, I think, would deliver that.
Governor, just to wrap this up quickly, how does the inconstancy, if we describe it that way, of President Trump, the unpredictability of President Trump really affect you and the state of New Jersey?
We spend an inordinate amount of time compensating, mitigating, or litigating actions that the Trump administration have taken, whether it's health care, the environment, public education, gun safety, you name it. It's a long list. But I also have a background in business, and I do know this, that even on the business side of the ledger, chief executives, boards, senior managers want some predictability. They want stability. They want to know where the road is headed. And I think the biggest challenge is the volatility that you mentioned. It's one thing to have policies that are wrong-headed, and many are, in my humble opinion, and many impair New Jersey, particularly our middle class and our folks who want to get into the middle class, but it's the volatility that I think is the biggest risk, and I just hope that that volatility comes down, and I know it will with a different president.